जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग गिरिधारी श्री श्री राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरन मोहन जू की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपार शतर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपार शतर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपार शतर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपार शतर शत शिशिमार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपार शतर शत शिशिमार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु महाभागवत श्री गौर किशोरदास बाबूजी महाराज की जय। नित्याल्प विश्व श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपानु गौड़िया गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सन जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपाद श्रील भक्ति विज्ञान भारती गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपाद श्रील भक्ति बलवत तीर्थ गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपाद श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपाद sorry. नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपाद श्रील भक्ति दायित माधव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपाद श्रील भक्ति प्रमोद पुरी गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्याल्प विष्णु विष्णुपाद श्रील भक्ति रक्षक श्रीधर गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। Srila Baladev Vijabhushan Prabhu ki jai. All the associates of Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, and all the disciples and followers of those associates ki jai. Jai Srila Baladev Vijabhushan Prabhu ki jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Shri Narottam Srinivas Shamananda Prabhu Trai ki jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Pad ki jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopala Bhattadasa Raghunath Shard Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namachay Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल कोट मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। अभिन्न वृंदावन श्री नवदीप धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। Ananta Koti Vaishnava. Oh, and today is Srila, I think it's Bhakti Sharan Shanta Goswami Maharaj's, what is it? I need to prepare, I need to set up the calendar. I just need a Devananda Koti uh, Panjika, that's why I haven't been able to do that. Today is Srila Bhakti Sharan Shanta Goswami Maharaj or Santa Goswami Maharaj is Avirbhav Titi. Dear Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai. Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan ki jai. Anant कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Okay, so we'll do Mangalacharan and then begin. Ajnanatimirandasya jnananjanashalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Shri Siddhanta Saraswati Vidito Koriya Gurvanvaye Bhatto Bhanuriva Prabhata Gagane Yogora Sankirtanai Maya Varati Mingilo Daragatan Udritya Jiva Niman Krishna Prema Sudabdi Gahana Sukhang Pradat Prabhung Tang Bhaje Vande Bhaktivinodang Shri Gaura Shakti Swarupakam Bhakti Shastragya Samrajang Radharasa Sudhanidhim Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vrishabhanusutanvitavamattanum Yamunatatanagaranandasutam Muralikalagita-vinoraparang Bhajagodrumakananakunjavidum Smaragoragadadara Kelikalang Bhavagoragadadara Pakshachara Shrinugoragadadara Charukatang Bhajagodrumakanana Kunjavidum Tavai Vasmi Na jivami tvaya vina iti vigyaya devi tvang nayamang charanantikam bhaktya vihina aparada lakshay kshiptascha kamadittaranga madhye kripa mai tvam sharanam prapanna vrinde namaste charanaravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Dandavat Pranams Niri Hari Prabhu Bhavatarani Mataji Rukmini Didi and on YouTube and Facebook I see Shash Sharma ji and I don't know who else is there Indira Mataji Raseshwari Mataji if you write a comment I'll see your name. Also, pranams to all the devotees watching in the future, like Shachi Devi, Jai Dev Prabhu, Krishna Vallabha Didi, Ananda Pradayani Didi, Anuradha Mataji, Vrinda Didi, Krishna Mai Didi, Madan Gopal Prabhu, and everybody else. Dandavat pranams. Madhubala Didi, maybe. All right, so we are. Today we're doing a bit of a different program. Um, I just wasn't feeling totally in the right headspace to be honest to go through kirtans right now. Like I wanted my minds to be a little bit more clear. And another thing though is um right now we're going through Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura's songs where he's lamenting about his life and the song that we were supposed to go through today is Vidyara Vilase Katainukal, how I spent all my time um just absorbed in studies and anyway, so I thought it might I Shrivas um he posted something on his website bigdrum.us about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's early life, and I haven't read it yet myself, but I was thinking that maybe by like if we read Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his explanation, like if we learn something about his early life, then we might uh, be able to read his these songs where he's talking about his life, we will see like how he's actually really um he's not he's like actually really feeling what he's talking about. And like I don't know, I thought I would just give some context. Um and of course, well, I was working last night on I started working on Vilap Kusmanjali, and in the introduction to Vilap Kusmanjali by Srila Gurudev. Oh, this is these we may turn this into an introduction. These are just informal darshans that my Gurudev had. But why does he say this? Sorry. Um, let me see. I'm just typing in the word sadak. Sadak. Okay, yeah. So with Srila in regarding Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, um Srila Gurudev, he says that though he, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, was a special Saki of Srimati Radhika, never separated from her. In this Leela, as Raghunath Das Goswami, he played the role of a jiva, a Raganuga sadhak, in the highest way. He was not pretending. By Yoga Maya's arrangement, he actually felt like a sadhak. Why did he feel like this? It was due to Yoga Maya. And And so Krishna is the god of gods, yet he weeps upon seeing the stick in the hand of Mother Yashoda. And he actually weeps. He actually fears Yashoda. He is not pretending. In the same way, the near and dear Saki of Srimati Radhika, Raghunath Das Goswami, was not pretending to be a sadhak here. By the influence of Yoga Maya, he behaved in accordance with how he actually felt. He had two roles. In one role, he was practicing Raghunuga Bhakti, Sadhan Bhakti. And in one role, in his Siddha Sharir as Rati Manjari, he was always serving both Radha and Krishna. Anyhow, so just this point about how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was actually going, like, experiencing all this. And it's not like, I mean, this is just how this is my understanding, but that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because all of us coming in this line of Srila Bhaktivinoda, we accept him as a Nitya Siddha, an eternal associate of Radha and Krishna. But then, for a special purpose, and to be able to, well, I wrote an article on this, and I actually I want to start reading Srivasa's thing now because if I because it's actually quite long what Srivasa wrote, but in order to for two reasons, this is my thought for two reasons. One is to really be able to understand the struggles of the jivas, like in a deep way, like firsthand, understand the struggles of the souls of this world, to really be able to empathize with them. Because it's said in Madhurya Kadambini that like Bhagavan, he can't actually feel like he can't really sympathize with the jivas because he's never had any experience of anything but Ananda. And so then the Vaishnavas, they have some memory of what they went through when they were in this world, and like a dream or whatever. And so then they're able to understand, and therefore it's the Vaishnavas who are able to bestow compassion. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for the first time ever, Mahaprabhu's mercy was given in a way that was never given before. Before, like it was for the first time in our line. Um, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur addressed people who had no faith, people who tried to rely on their own intelligence, people who didn't accept the scriptures. You know, he addressed these people. And he showed through his own life the ideal example for of the life of a sadhak, and we should try to follow his example like that. And so, for these reasons, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he went through so much struggle and had a seemingly ordinary life, so that compassion and mercy and the ideal example could be given in the greatest way ever. And we see the result of that. Now we're all here. It's all due to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and also to give us the topmost example that we can follow. And so, let's read what Shivas posted on his website. One second. Here it is. So you can find this on bigdrum.us. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the Baptist Poetess. And as I said, I've never read this before, so okay. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, poet, school teacher, novelist, magistrate, philosopher, father to 10 children, spiritual reformer, mystic, Gaudiya Vaishnav prophet, and more. Was born Kedarnath Datta. He is born into a wealthy, prestigious Bengali family of Ula, Bir Nagar. It used to just be called Ula or Ulagram, and then later on it was named Bir Nagar. His grandfather possessed a grand estate that is still a heritage site in the Nadia district. During the Thakur's early childhood, when his family was at the peak of its prosperity, they had hundreds of male and female servants. They hosted elaborate religious festivals and effectively maintained a sizable, idyllic village of largely carefree people who excelled in music and fine arts. This utopia was short-lived, however. In 1856, an epidemic of cholera decimated the village. The Thakur was one of the few survivors of this tragedy. Overc Overcoming various challenging twists of fate and aided, I don't know this word, fortuitous, how do you say that? Anyways, fortuitously, that means by chance. Okay, yeah. Um, and by chance, by some distinguished aided by chance by some distinguished relatives and friends, the Thakur eventually flourished in Kolkata among the intelligentsia of his day by dint of his literary strengths and interests. An astute, thoughtful young man secretly battling loss and bouts of depression, he mingled with famed poets, esteemed professors, holy reverends, and missionaries, and various members of the illustrious Thakur family. You know, the Rabindranath Tagore, like that. His family. Among his assorted acquaintances was a spiritually eccentric American Baptist woman who was twice his age. Her name was Mrs. Lydia Lilliebridge Simmons, or Mrs. E. Locke, as the Thakur refers to her, on the dedication page of the Poriad, his 1857 debut volume of English poetry. Okay, so her name is Elok. Despite the age difference and the cultural one, the Thakur and Mrs. Locke seems to have shared a close friendship over the course of perhaps 2 or 3 years, some of which were the most challenging of the young Thakur's life. While the dedication page of the Poriad is one clue, and some indications are provided in the Thakur's few references to her in his autobiography. Perhaps the best and hitherto untapped resource to understanding this most unexpected of friendships is Mrs. Locke's own solitary work, known in short as Leisure Hours, which had been published a decade prior to their acquaintance. The following essay attempts three goals. One, to capture as briefly as possible the story of Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura's development as a writer of English poetry as disclosed in his autobiography. Two, to make sense of the Poriad itself, which stands out among the Thakura's numerous works, not only as his first official publication in English, but also as a somewhat puzzling work for Gaudiya Vaishnavas due to its ostensible lack of bhakti-centric content. And three, to bring into focus the distinctly saragrahi, the essence-seeking nature of Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura's character and pastimes, by highlighting what appears to be a unique interfaith co-pollination involving not only Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura and Mrs. Locke, but also the Thakura's famous poet uncle, Kashi Prasad Ghosh. Early appreciation for the Mahabharata. At the age of 7, Kedarnath Dutt, later Thakur Bhaktivinod, moved from his family home in Ula to nearby Krishnanagar, along with his elder brother, cousin, and other peers. There they began attending a boarding school of sorts at the behest of the Krishnanagar king, Shrish Chandra. Kedarnath, the youngest of the bunch, was so anxious about the arrangement that his mother had to send his personal nursemaid with him at first. Oh yeah, and there's a description of his relationship with that nursemaid. He was very close with her. I think it is even like he's closer with the nursemaid than his own mother. The boys were accommodated in a two-story house located in the town bazaar. Their rooms consisted of an upstairs sleeping quarter and a downstairs kitchen. Next to the kitchen was a dry storage for the oil press next door. The seeds would fall through the cracks in the door, recalls the Thakur, and the boys would collect them, fry them, and eat them. The Thakur mentions that there was a statue of Ganesh, Vyasa's elephantine scribe, above the stairs. He remembers that, sitting on the stairs, he was able to see into the workshop of the very elderly man who operated the oil press while sitting on a low seat. The elderly man, in pious anticipation of his impending death, had arranged to have the ancient epic of Mahabharata read aloud in his courtyard. The speaker sat on a raised seat beneath a decorative canopy and did his recitation, likely from a poetic Bengali adaptation, as the Thakur recalls him breaking into a song from time to time. I read a Bengali, I was reading from Bengali Mahabharata to Shraman Maharaj in Devananda Gauriya. He's having me read. I wonder if it was the same thing. Anyways, listening to these recitations as he sat on the stairs beneath the sacred image of Ganesh, the scribe of the Mahabharata appears to have been the highlight of this period for young Kedarnath. He mentions that he found himself most captivated by the stories about the powerful Bhima, known for his tremendous strength, insatiable appetite, and fierce temper. Mr. ABC. It was in Krishnanagar that Kedarnath began studying English, and he excelled, gaining favor among the teachers and prestige in the class. He was promoted to a higher class and received an award. None of the other boys he studied with experienced such success. When they returned to Ula on the weekends, his relatives showered him with praise and affection. The abundance of praise backfired, however, deflating Kedarnath's enthusiasm. His performance suffered, and his classmates, who had been jealous, took the opportunity to berate him. Their jealousy surfaced in full force. Torment closed in on him from all sides, and he found himself unable to memorize his lessons any longer. Kedarnath began skipping school, leaving the house on the palanquin that carried the boys to school, but then hiding in the woods till classes were over. Wow, he'd be carried on a palanquin. That's interesting. One second, just looking at the comments. Um, Bhavatarani Mataji is saying, if I remember correctly, his book, the Poryad one, yeah, it was about Hercules, part one. My son Vrindavan Das has a book tracing other cultures to Vedic cultures and Hercules personality. Hercules personality is coming from Balaram. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, well, and I think we'll find out a bit more about that book soon, later on also. All right, so he would leave the house on the palanquin that carried the boys to school, but then he'd hide in the woods till the classes were over. Some days he stayed home entirely, feigning illness. Kedarnath's nursemaid had returned to their hometown, and the one remaining household servant sympathized with him, indulging the behavior. Sometime later, Kedarnath's elder brother suddenly came down with cholera. The boys swiftly returned to their hometown of Ula by palanquin, but shortly after arriving, the elder brother died. After that, Kedarnath's parents did not want to send him back to Krishnanagar, and his own disinterest in studies was welcome news to them. This lasted 3 or 4 months, during which Kedarnath forgot all the English he had learnt. But an English school was soon set up in the village, and he resumed his studies, excelling once again. Meanwhile, he also studied math and Bengali in front of the charming family deity of Krishna Chandra Rai. Interesting. So there's a family deity of Krishna Chandra Rai. All was well in the idyllic village of Ula for a time. But, and I remember when we went to Virnagar, we were hearing from Sundar Gopal from the BRC. He was explaining Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura's descriptions of Ula, like how every day was like a festival there, and he would tell all these details about how happy and prosperous the village was, and how no one worried about money, and how people were just, it was like a real utopia. But the Thakur recalls a sudden turning point when a maternal uncle of his died. Everything started to go wrong for the family. The Thakur's grandfather, the patriarch of the family, succumbed to swindlers and fell into debt. One by one, the Thakur's 4 brothers died, leaving just him and his infant sister. By the time Kedarnath was 11, his father had died too. After many desperate efforts to secure his son's future. Without his father, the Thakur recalls feeling lost and alone, as if engulfed in darkness. He felt he was floundering at school, progressing very little with no one to take a serious interest in his development. He did reasonably well in literature, but struggled with math. His teachers showed him kindness, but a cloud of depression hovered over him. He began to consume castor oil secretly to make himself sick. Still, he managed to stay out of trouble and turned to poetry, channeling his troubled spirit into a glorification of the local village goddess, Ula Chandi, written in Bengali. In an attempt to salvage her son's future, Kedarnath's mother arranged his marriage. Oh my God, this is all happening when he was 11 years old. I remember hearing that actually when we went to Virnagar. 11 years old. Imagine. In an attempt to salvage her son's future, Kedarnath's mother arranged his marriage. He was 12 and his bride was 5. Can you imagine though? He became like the man of the house at 11 years old. His father was dead, he had no elder brothers, and so he had to take on so much responsibility at the age of 11. And um he was 12 and his wife and his bride was 5. He describes the marriage as that of dolls. He was even too nervous to stay in his father-in-law's home on the wedding night, so his nanny had to accompany him. As was customary, he and his bride lived apart until she was of mature age. It seems that it was in his in-laws' home, in the nearby village of Kishma, that the Thakur first encountered Englishmen, military personnel, and struck up conversations with them. He recalls being very curious of the finely dressed Englishwomen, and when missionaries came to town, he was sure to go to see them. He had always had a keen interest in God. He persistently inquired of the various people in his life, maids, guards, carpenters, etc., regarding God. It seems he eventually came away with some faith in the name of Lord Ram and belief in one supreme God. Isn't that amazing though, that poem that he wrote about Ula Chandi? He wrote that I don't know, but when he was some age earlier than 11, maybe when he was 11. I can just see. When we were reading, I was thinking that it was talking about like like a teenager or a young adult, but then I'm like, oh my God, he was only 11 through all that. So when Kedarnath was about 14, one of his maternal uncles, Kashi Prasad Ghosh, who had gained considerable fame as the first Indian to publish a volume of English poetry, came to Ula for a family visit. One day, he tested Kedarnath's skills in reading and writing. Impressed with the young Thakur, Kashi Prasad and his wife, Kedarnath's aunt, he had his wife, that's Kedarnath's aunt, convince her sister to let her only remaining son go to study in Kolkata, where he had shot at a proper education. Once Kedarnath's mother overcame her reluctance, Kedarnath moved to Kolkata, where he initially lived with Kashi Prasad Ghosh in a nice neighborhood surrounded by various schools and the homes of missionaries. With the help of his aunt and uncle, Kedarnath flourished. Through Ghosh, Kedarnath was exposed to the intelligentsia of Kolkata, writers, artists, poets, professors, priests, activists. One by one, Kedarnath read all the books in Ghosh's library, including many English books on philosophy. By his third year in Kolkata, Kedarnath began writing for the Hindu Intelligencer. That's what it's called, the magazine's, yeah, the Hindu Intelligencer, an English journal Ghosh edited, and delivering occasional lectures in English. Though he still fared poorly in mathematics, his literary competence earned him the respect of his classmates and teachers, and he began to write poetry that impressed them all, and even drew the attention of the principal of his school. I wonder how old he is. Is he still 14 at this point or a little bit older? Oh, third year in Kolkata. So maybe he was like 16 or 17? Yeah, I think so. So at that age, 17 years old, or 16 or 17, he's writing for the what is it? The Hindu intelligentsia. By the end of the school year in 1854, Kedarnath was determined to proceed to university. But upon arriving at the town hall for the entrance exams, he came down with a fever. Deprived of higher education for a time, he turned to other avenues, venturing daily to the Metcalfe Hall, which housed the Kolkata Public Library, and reading voraciously. He frequented various debate clubs and associations, where he met various distinguished gentlemen. One, Reverend Dahl, instructed the Thakur in the art of philosophical discussion. The Thakur writes that George Thompson, the British parliamentarian and abolitionist, taught him tricks to master public speaking, such as standing in a field and practicing one's speech while imagining the assorted plants to be the audience. Interesting. I'll have to try that out. By the end of 1856, young Kedarnath, who was just 18, had composed the first part of the Poryad. Poryad or Poryade, I don't know. I think Poryad. Anyways, um, he read all of Milton with the help of another reverend, and regularly accompanied an acquaintance from Ula to the home of one Grub Sahib to read Edison. He read, I don't know how to say all these names. Um, Carlisle? I don't know how to say that actually. Sorry, I'm saying Carlisle? I don't know how to say
Carlisle.
Oh, Carlisle. Okay, thanks. And this is it Haslett or Haslet? Carlisle?
Yes.
Haslet. Okay, Jeffrey Macaulay and others. So he's reading from all these authors. Thank you. He composed short poems that were printed in the Kolkata Library Gazette, and he became known as Mr. ABC. Mr. ABC. Okay, now Mrs. Luck. One day he was invited to meet one Mrs. E. Luck, which appears to be a maiden name, through their mutual acquaintance. So he met her through their mutual acquaintance, Reverend Dahl. Mrs. Locke looked over young Kedarnath's poetry and chatted with him at length. She was very pleased with his compositions and praised them. Mrs. Locke must have made an impression on the Thakur, and her earlier published works may reveal why, for Thakur, it may reveal why, um, for Thakur, that he later dedicated the book to her as follows. So this is at the beginning of the Poryad. In the first page, he writes, To Mrs. E. Luck, authoress of Leisure Hours, etc., etc. This book is most respectfully inscribed by her. This book is most respectfully inscribed by her obliged and obedient servant, the author. So that's on the first page of the Poryad, or Poryade, whatever. Mrs. Luck, or Mrs. Lydia Lilybridge Simmons, who
Yeah.
is,
It's
sorry,
Poria because
Poryad.
it's
Por,
fashioned after the Iliad of
okay,
Homer.
Poryad. Okay, cool. The Poryad. Okay, great. So Mrs. Locke was, and her time period was 1817 to 1898. Um, so she was an American woman in her late 30s. She was a faithful Baptist Christian and she was a published poet. Her primary work, Leisure Hours, are or desultory pieces in prose and verse, is a collection of writings published in 1846 and is attributed simply by the initials E.L. After living in Kolkata for several years and publishing her collection of prose and verse, in July of 1846, she had sailed to Burma as Miss Lydia Lilliebridge, where she labored diligently in service to the Morton Lane Girls' School in Moulmein. Um, that's Malamine, I don't know, which had a boarding department for Eurasian girls. She was closely associated with Mr. Adoni, sorry, I don't know how to say all these names. Adoniram Judson, a prominent American Baptist missionary in Burma, and his wife, Mrs. Emily Judson, an American writer. Eventually, on May 13, 1851, Miss Lydia Lillibridge married one Reverend Thomas Simmons, a missionary who had been in Burma since 1833. He had been married once before and had 4 children. His previous wife, Caroline Jenks Harrington, had died in 1843. 2 years later, he had relocated their 4 children back to America and arranged for their education there. Then he had returned to Burma in 1847 to continue his religious labors. Miss Lillibridge also appears to have been married once before, as her 1846 work includes a poem entitled My Husband's Tomb, page 141. She and the Reverend Simmons proceeded to have 2 children of their own. As of 1890, only one of their children is said to have survived. It is possible that one of the children died early on. Perhaps this or some other difficulty prompted a separation between the couple. Records show that in 1854, Reverend Simmons removed himself to Prom on the Irrawaddy, I don't know how you say that, anyways, where he performed his missionary work for the next 22 years of his life before dying of cholera in 1876. While the American Baptist Missionary Union records Mrs. Locke or Simmons as accompanying Reverend Simmons in Prom until 1874, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's autobiography indicates she returned to Kolkata at least briefly and was going by her maiden name. Whatever the reason for her return, her book of poetry suggests Kolkata was a favorite spot of hers. It was here, a decade prior, that she had composed a fair amount of stirring poetry on a vast range of subjects, ranging from the divine couple Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, though she was clearly a devout Christian, to meditations on creation, Jesus, trust in God, loss, the Greco-Turkish Greco-Turkish conflicts, or even things as simple as a dewdrop on a leaf. Isn't that so interesting that she wrote poetry about Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan? But yeah, she'd even write things about things as simple as a dewdrop on a leaf. So she says, I love to view the dewdrop trembling on the jasmine leaf resembling the pure, the salut, the salutary fear that flows from, I don't know all these words, I'm not, sorry. But how do you even say that?
Penitence.
Penitence. Okay, repentance. Okay. The action or of feeling or showing sorrow and regret for having done wrong. Repentance. Okay. So that flows from the penitence sincere. I love to list the murmuring breeze, stirred the foliage of the trees, which, as it whispers, seems to say, I thus to God my homage pay.
That's beautiful.
Sorry, there's an echo. Couldn't hear. Um, I love to sit here isolate and think upon an after state. And though I'm left all alone, my Father views me from his throne. So that's a poem called Some Things That I Love from Leisure Hours, page 53. From her poetry and prose, Mrs. Simmons, or Locke, comes across as a profoundly gentle and thoughtful soul, firmly devoted to God, clearly egalitarian in her worldview, and possessed of a deep love for Bengal, India, and even the deeper layers of its culture and religion. Her repeated references to Vrindavan and Radha and Krishna make this clear. How and why exactly she ended up back in India after her missionary work and marriage in Burma is not clear. But from the Thakura's own autobiography and the dedication page of the Poriade, she appears to have been in Kolkata around 1856 to 1857. While Mrs. Locke's husband, who was possibly estranged to her at that time, would later die of cholera, the young Kedarnath was about to have his fateful, life-changing encounter with the disease at that time. A desolated hometown. Actually, it's 7:55 right now. This might be a good cliffhanger to, yeah, to leave on, and we can finish the rest of this tomorrow. Let's see how long this section is. Actually, let's just read this section and then we'll finish. So, a desolated hometown. It seems almost everyone died of cholera. So it seems almost everyone died of cholera in those days, in that region of the world. Before attempting his university entrance examinations for presumably the second time, the Thakur made a trip back to his hometown of Ula. He had not heard any news from his home in some time. When Kedarnath docked in Ula after a stormy night up the Ganges by boat, he and his companion found a group of men laughing and joking in a stupor of cannabis intoxication. Other than these madmen, the village was desolate. It had been decimated by cholera. The scene that Thakur describes is gruesome. Corpses lying all about. Most houses deathly silent. Others punctuated by wails of pain from those dying. And the local dogs in a craze of bloodlust, fearless of humans, emboldened by the abundance of human flesh. Oh my God. Rushing to his home against the advice of friends and neighbors, he discovered his last sibling, his younger sister, had died, and his mother was sick, though she seemed to be recovering. The next day, he quickly evacuated his mother and grandmother to Kolkata, stopping in Ranagat briefly to check on his 10 or 11-year-old bride, who is also sick but recovering. Back in Ula, thousands died within a few months. Survivors fled en masse. Yet this was not the first time cholera had struck the town. There had been recurrent outbreaks in the region since at least 1817. The name Ula itself came from the Bengali word of cholera, or Ola Uta, which literally means to come up and out. Evidently, the local goddess was named Ula Chandi in an attempt to ward off this recurrent curse. Okay, so we will end here and we'll continue reading this tomorrow. Turning to God. That's what we'll continue on tomorrow. And one thing, today is Bhakti Sharan Shanta Goswami Maharaj's appearance day. And so I just want to read a short thing about him before we end from Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura Goswami Maharaj. So today is the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti. Today it's the appearance day, March 8th. It's the appearance day, but this is a class that he gave on his disappearance day in January 29, 2017. So he says, today is the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Sharan Shanta Goswami Maharaj, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Externally speaking, he was born in Jessore district, now Bangladesh, in Bodhkana village. After joining the Mutt, he was awarded the name Parananda Prabhu. One of his services was to perform arati at the Yogapit temple. At that time, ladies from Vishnupriya Pali would attend the arati. Later he went to Godrum. Even then, all the ladies continued to go and see him perform the arati. Thereafter, due to some reversal or rearrangement, he went to Bardhaman district and made his ashram in Ahiyapur. When he performed deity installation there, he decided to take Guru Maharaj, Srimad Bhakti Madhav Goswami Maharaj, with him. At that time, Guru Maharaj inspired him not to stay there, but rather to reside in the Dham. So he moved to Mayapur and made another ashram there. Guru Maharaj would often convince his godbrothers to settle in Mayapur and stay together. While Srila Bhakti Sharan Shanta Maharaj was constructing his mat in Mayapur, he was residing in Armat. His speciality was that he would nurture small children, cultivating them spiritually by teaching them how to perform bhajan. Upon being trained nicely, however, some other devotees would later adopt the readily trained young devotees to serve in their respective mats. So they would take him away from him. Srila Shanta Maharaj would never become upset by this because he considered awarding training as his duty, regardless of where his students ended up. He would name his disciples Ram Gopal, Sham Gopal, and so on. He used to speak very softly and sweetly. And these are the deities installed by Srila Bhakti Sharan Shanta Goswami Maharaj in Mayapur, which are opposite of his samadhi. And this is right next to Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj's samadhi. Later, Guru Maharaj urged him to take sannyas from Srila Bhakti Gaurav Vaikanas Goswami Maharaj, and he came to be known as Sri Bhakti Sharan Shanta Maharaj. He would participate in festivals at our mutt, and he would also preach. He desired that Guru Maharaj accept his mutt, but he declines the Guru Maharaj he declines the offer, as he did not want two mutts in one location. Guru Maharaj requested him to retain the ownership and promised to provide whatever support he would be required. Our mutt in charge used to help him in all possible ways. Eventually, he left his body and was given samadhi there itself. I never saw Srila Shanta Maharaj engage in a quarrel or argument with anyone. He would not even raise his voice towards his disciples. Most of the time, he used to reside in our mutt. He was a very loving Vaishnav. I am remembering him on his disappearance day because both appearance and disappearance days of Vaishnavas can bestow auspiciousness. Both of them are equally worthy of worship. Remembrance of Vaishnavas brings auspiciousness, and their forgetfulness brings inauspiciousness. Jai Srila Bhakti Sharan Shanta Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Okay, that's our reading for today, and we'll continue reading this article by Shivas tomorrow. So, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Jai Shri Guru Dev Ki Jai, Jai Shri Param Guru Dev Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Saparsha Shri Gaur Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Gan Ki Jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Shri Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura ki Jai. Jai. All the acharyas in the line of Srila Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura ki Jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Sharan Shanta Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Todhir Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavascha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Dandavat Pranams Niri Hari Prabhu Bhavatarani Mataji Ashray Tattva Prabhu Anuradha Mataji Hari Prabhu Anuradha Mataji and Shah Sharma ji uh, Kaji Sagwar Hare Krishna. I don't know who you are, but Hare Krishna. And Neela Didi, and all the other devotees watching, maybe Indira Mataji and Seshwari Mataji, and all the devotees watching in the future, like Shachi Devi, Jai Dev Prabhu, um, Krishna Vallabha Didi, Ananda Pradayani Didi, uh, um, Sai, Vrinda Didi, Krishna Mai Didi, Madan Gopal Prabhu, and everybody else. Dandavat Pranams. See you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe. Is there anything anybody wants to mention before I end the stream for today? Okay, see you all tomorrow. Hari Bol.